The board will now come to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Present.
Alderman Bosley. Alderwoman Evans.
Present.
Alderman Page.
Present.
Alderwoman Ingracia.
Present.
Alderman Coder.
Here.
Alderwoman Rice.
Present.
Alderman Gunther.
Here.
Alderman Balmer.
Present.
Alderwoman Martin. Alderman Stevens. Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Present.
Alderwoman Howard.
Present.
Alderwoman Green. Alderman Oldenburg.
Present.
Alderwoman Peel. Alderman Todd.
Present.
Alderwoman Davis.
Present.
Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Muhammad. Alderman Boyd.
Present.
Alderman Vaccaro.
Present.
Alderman Narayan.
Here.
Alderman Cone. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Here.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Present.
Alderwoman Navarro.
Present.
President Reed.
Here.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderman Bosley. Alderwoman Martin. Alderwoman Green. Alderwoman Peel. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Muhammad. Alderman Cone. 21 present.
A quorum being present, I'm just so honored to have with us today a good friend of mine, truly gifted pastor, Pastor Edgar Madison Jr. of Kennerly Temple. We're in your hands, Pastor, and thank you so much for blessing us today with your presence and leading us off in prayer.
God bless you on today, President Reed, and to all the aldermen and all the women that are on the line today. And special shout out to Alderman Hubbard for your birthday. Congratulations and happy birthday. Many, many more for you and to all those that are on the line. I'll be real brief with prayer today. Let me start off by saying this is the day that the Lord has made, and we shall rejoice and be glad in it. Now, God, we thank you for this day. Thank you for a day that we never seen. We thank you for this opportunity that you had afforded us to come together from the north, south, east, and west of this city. God, we pray that you give us wisdom and knowledge. You said in your word, if we acknowledge you in all thy ways, you shall direct our path. We need direction today, not only but to operate and to run and help the facility and the community, but God, give us guidance how to take us further. God, here we are stuck in the middle of the road, but you give us direction and we will follow you. It's not our will, but your will be done for our lives and for the lives of the people that we serve. God, on this day, we ask that you keep us in the center of your will and that your will be done in our life, and we'll forever give you praise. All glory and honor shall be thine. And as I would say at my church, it's already done. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Great prayer. Thank you so much, Pastor, for leading us.
All right,
off.
you all be encouraged.
We will. Thank you so much.
All right.
All right. Alderwoman of the 4th, recognize and the introduction of our guest.
I'm sorry. Could you repeat that again?
So I didn't know if you wanted to recognize the pastor as your honored guest today.
Yes, I would like to recognize him as my honored guest, and hope that, well, I know we'll have him back again.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Alderwoman. Alderman from the 5th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. It is my honor and pleasure to recognize all of the business and residential constituents, my friends, neighbors, and colleagues of the fabulous 5th Ward, to honor everyone in the fabulous 5th Ward as my honored guests.
All right, let's welcome the 5th Ward. All right, Alderman from the 23rd.
Yes, as always, and I think I'm going for the Guinness World Book of Records for honored guests being introduced. I would like to have my good friend Greg Meyer introduced as my special guest.
All right, welcome, Greg. If the board is in session, Greg is here. Any further introductions? Alderman from the 10th like to wrap us up.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. We're gathered here on November 19th, 2021, which on this day in 1805, Lewis and Clark reached the Pacific Ocean. This is also known as National Toilet Day. I'll leave that one alone. But on this day in 1990, the alderman from the 23rd was quite depressed when his favorite singing group, Milli Vanilli, was stripped of their Grammys. He's been in depression ever since.
All right. Whatever happened to those guys? Approval of the minutes.
Approval of the minutes dated Friday, November 12th, 2021.
Alderman from the 10th, you recognize on approval of the minutes.
All right, thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I move that we approve the minutes from November 12th, 2021.
Moved by the Alderman from the 10th, entertain a second.
Second.
Seconded by the Alderman from the 4th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Report of city officials.
Report of city officials can be found in A, B, and C of the agenda and has been placed in the alderman's mailboxes. Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individuals for reappointment to the Mental Health Board. The reappointment of Ms. Carla Rose, the reappointment of Ms. Caroline Jackson, the reappointment of Ms. Donna Smith, the reappointment of Dr. Julia Lopez. I respectfully request your approval of these appointments. Sincerely, Tashara O. Jones, Mayor.
Alderman from the 7th, you recognize on the mayor's appointment to the Mental Health Board. Alderman from the 7th. Alderman from the 6th, you recognize on the mayor's appointment to the Mental Health Board.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I move that we adopt the mayor's appointments.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 6th. Entertain a second on that motion. Seconded by the Alderman from the 9th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. You dispense with line item 7. Would anyone like to take any bills off of any of our informal calendars? Would anyone like to take any bills off of any of our informal calendars? We will dispense with line items 8 through 10. First reading of board bills.
Board Bill 134, sponsored by Alderman Boyd, an ordinance repealing ordinance number 66969, ordinance number 66415, ordinance number 64603, and ordinance number 65118, which latter ordinance amended and restated ordinance number 64603, dissolving the special allocations fund for Delmore East Loop, Barton Street Lofts, and Shoto Compton redevelopment areas, and terminating the designation of a portion of the city of St. Louis, Missouri as redevelopment areas and authorizing certain actions relating thereto. Board Bill 135, sponsored by Alderwoman Ingracia, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing the Department of Health to accept a closing the gap with social determinants of health, food and nutrition grant $89,522 from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 136, sponsored by Alderwoman Evans, an ordinance repealing ordinance number 70087, and in lieu thereof enacting a new ordinance prohibiting the issuance of any package or drink liquor licenses for any currently non-licensed premises within the boundaries of the Fourth Ward Liquor Control District contained in the emergency clause. That is first reading Board Bill.
Reference to committee.
To the HUD Committee, Board Bill 134, to Health and Human Services, Board Bill 135, and to Public Safety, Board Bill 136. That is of reference to committee.
Second reading.
The following board bill was reported from Public Safety with a due pass recommendation. Board Bill 19, Committee Sub, sponsored by Alderman Vaccaro. An ordinance establishing a detention facility oversight board comprised of 9 city residents to serve as advisory board to the mayor, commissioner of corrections, and the director of public safety with regard to detention facility operations, condition of detention, and the division of correction policies that is authorized to receive and investigate complaints of alleged corrections, misconduct, and detention incidents, and make findings and recommendations based thereon, including recommendations regarding division of corrections policy and procedures, employee professional development, and employee disciplinary action. That is extent of second reading report of standing committees.
We'll dispense with line item 14. Perfection consent.
Board Bill 114, sponsored by Alderman Vaccaro, and ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission on October 6, 2021, to change the zoning of property as indicated on district map from A, single family dwelling district to D, multiple family dwelling district in City Block 4758, so as to include the described parcels of land in City Block 4758 and contain an emergency clause. Board Bill 115, sponsored by Alderwoman Evans, an ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission on October 6, 2021, to change the zoning of property as indicated on district map from the C, multiple family dwelling district, and F, neighborhood commercial district, to D, multiple family dwelling district in City Block 3654, so as to include the described parcels of land in City Block 3654 and contain an emergency clause. Board Bill 102, sponsored by Alderman Todd, an ordinance authorizing the honorary street name Transformation Christian Church and World Outreach Center Way pursuant to ordinance number 68937, which shall begin at the intersection of North Sarah Street and Page Boulevard and run west on Page Boulevard to the intersection of Whittier Street and Page Boulevard. Board Bill 120, sponsored by Alderwoman Davis, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Public Service to conditionally vacate above surface and subsurface rights for vehicle, equestrian, and pedestrian travel as bounded by Samuel Shepherd Drive, Leonard Avenue, Washington Boulevard, and Josephine Baker Boulevard in the city of St. Louis, Missouri, as hereinafter described in accordance with Charter Authority and in conformity with Section 1/4 of Article 21 of the Charter and imposing certain conditions on such vacation. That is the extent of perfection consent calendar.
Alderman from the 10th, you're recognized on the motion for perfection consent.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I move that we adopt the perfection consent calendar.
Second. Alderman from the 26th. It's been moved by the Alderman from the 10th and seconded by the Alderman from the 22nd. Alderman from the 26th, had your hand up? Okay. It's been moved and seconded that we adopt our courtesy resolutions calendar. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Board bills for perfection.
Board Bill 113, sponsored by Alderwoman Davis, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment authorizing the city of St. Louis, Missouri to issue its taxable industrial development revenue bonds, Steel Coal Gratiot LLC Project Series 2021, in the principal amount of not to exceed $60 million, authorizing and directing the taking of other actions and approval and execution of other documents as are necessary or desirable to carry out and comply with the intent hereof.
Alderman from the 19th, you recognize on the perfection of Board Bill 113.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. I'm
Move for
sorry.
perfection.
I know, but my voice is not there.
I know, I know.
I move for perfection of Board Bill 113.
All right, moved by the Alderman from the 19th. Entertain a second on that motion.
Second.
Seconded by the Alderman from the 14th. Please proceed.
Thank you very much. As was read, the Board Bill 113 is an incentive opportunity that we are initiating incentive revenue bonds for a project that will bring the city 196 living units and also a large box retail development. It has many of the great things about this bill is we had the opportunity to negotiate it with a lot of new understandings. I'll put it that way. Our new director, Neil Richardson, took time and made sure that the city was not in any undue strain for this opportunity, nor any of our taxing districts. So the overall process here for the city tax recovery is going to be quite adequate. We will not be opposing upon the school district or any other taxing district in the city. We also will have an opportunity here with this, the way it's structured, to make sure that we not only have that opportunity, but there's a clawback clause in it if this project is sold within 7 years. And it is one of those projects that scored 5 out of 5. And it has a lot of opportunity to enrich an area of the city that was basically about to be all abandoned, where we had a lot of industrial, like salvage yards and things like that. So now this is the 4th housing development that's being done down there, and now having this large retailer. So I would like to end my conversation at this point and answer any questions that are available to me.
All right, thanks. Any further discussion? Alderman from Ney.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board, and thank you, Alderwoman Davis, for entertaining some discussion on this bill today. There's been a lot of conversation in the public about this, and so I thought it would be helpful to bring it forward and have that conversation. I understand that this is a taxable industrial revenue bonds, and that's different than a TIF than we normally do. Tax abatement was granted on this by the Midtown Redevelopment Corporation, and it looks like 10 years at 90% and 10 years at 50%, which is better than 20 years at 100%. So that's a good development there. I do think that we as the city need to take a closer look at the Midtown Redevelopment's sole authority down there. I think that we're getting to the point where, development is moving forward, and it's probably in the city's best interest to take a really close look at that and making sure that the developments that they're putting forward are in the best interest of the city. I'm not speaking to this project specifically. It's more about a gas station that's a little closer to my ward that I'm hearing a lot of feedback about right now. I did take the time yesterday to talk to the city's attorney on this process, and talking about the sales tax exemptions, the sales tax and use tax exemptions here. These don't normally affect the city of St. Louis tax because a lot of these materials are purchased outside of the city. And that was something that he talked to me about, was that in 2 of the previous projects where we've used this type of funding, one of the projects was 10 or 11% of the materials were purchased in the city. Another one, it was only 2%. And so the sales tax loss to the city is pretty could be pretty negligible on that. And so that makes more sense to me as we're looking at what may or may not be there, or what the city may be losing when we're offering incentives. It's helpful to just know what those numbers are, and that SLDC is tracking that as this is a newer incentive package or newer deal. I will say I'm happy about the affordable housing that was included as well. I think that was a great negotiation to include specific units for workforce housing, and then even more affordable housing. That is great. I would love to see a little bit more restriction on parking in one of the most transit-oriented corners of the city. It's on one of the best bus lines right next to the Metrolink, and so I would love in the future, as we're looking towards developments on that corner in particular, that we emphasize the transit access there and maybe de-emphasize parking, particularly free parking for residents. I think that that may be unnecessary and may make some of the costs lower. But and that it is Target, that is the big box store that's coming in, and I know that they directly are not getting the incentive. They are coming in as a tenant of this project, but it's looking at Target's revenues that were just reported yesterday. I think it's one of those where, are we offering things from the city to this major corporation? Thank you for establishing another store in the city. We're happy to have them, but continuing to bargain from a place of support and of a little pride for the city, I think is good. So I'm glad that we're moving in that direction. Alderwoman Davis, I don't think that I have any specific questions, except actually I would, if the Alderwoman from the 19th would yield for a question.
Alderwoman from the 19th will yield for a question. Alderwoman from the 8th, please proceed. Thank
you. And I apologize for this on a day where you're having trouble with your voice. So could you just walk us through? So there have been 3 different bills on this, and I believe there's a resolution tied to all of this is tied to this one development package. Could you kind of tie them all together for us, since they've come through at different points of debate, that like why each of the bills is needed here? Or I hope that that's on topic for this.
Well, I won't mention the other bill numbers, because we should only be talking about this board bill. But the development structure and financing, it requires us to have a financing bill, a development bill, and in this particular instance, also a SID. So that's why you see those.
Okay, so we've had the SID is on our third reading calendar. We did a zoning change. That was the other one, right? Was a zoning change.
And the zoning comes in with the development package.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And then this one together. Okay. I really think that's all the questions that I have. I just wanted to make sure that we were having the conversation publicly today, since so many of our folks had asked. Thank you so much, Alderwoman Davis.
Alderwoman Rice, let me give you a couple of assurances. One of the things that we can be assured of is that many of the things that we've all been concerned about, our director, Neil Richardson, is putting policies in place. He is very stern in his negotiation processes. When I left this development package with him, I was very surprised and very excited with the return. So I did appreciate his negotiations on this. And actually, he gained us a developer who is not even wanting to help him more with different kinds of projects across the city. So he's doing a good job, and we can rely on that. And there's nothing wrong ever with looking at something again. So I'm sure that all of us, because we all have the same goal. When you talk about a university that has been in this city 205 years, chose to stay here, has put so much into this city, not just providing education, but medical care, community engagement, working with almost every nonprofit across the city at some point. They are thoroughly invested. So I'm excited about the opportunity to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Alderwoman from the 11th. Alderwoman from
Sorry, my video was slow. Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to point out that multiple times in multiple meetings, I asked for some response from Target Corporation on why they involved themselves in our city's plumbing codes. We were promised by the development team that we would hear back from them, and we have yet to hear back from them. Thank you. That's all I have.
All right, thank you.
Mr. President, may I?
Hold on for a second. Alderwoman from the 19th, you're recognized.
Thank you very much. And yes, there should have been a response a little bit sooner, but we've been busy, and I will take all the blame for that. There was a response from Target, and they did weigh in with an opinion, but it was only because this group from the International Code Association approached them about this. They were not approached by myself nor the developer, and they stated that they just simply gave some facts, which were already known by this association, that the majority of their projects, I think the number that they indicated was 1,500 stores, had been constructed using the international code. But for them, this fact had no purpose other than simply stating a fact. And they were not trying to be included in anybody's decision one way or the other. And I take that as one of those things where anytime anybody is debating or trying to sway a decision one way or another, they go out and they gather information from many people. For me, and most people, we weigh it or we don't. So that's what I'm asking. I would suggest that people not even consider that because it honestly doesn't have anything to do with what we're doing here today. And if the developer had known about this, it would have been different, but we learned about it the same time everybody else did. So I'm hoping that this has brought some clarity and it can be left where it should be. It's on the table for any individual to decide what they want to do. I'm personally not considering it in any kind of way. And this deal was probably already done and inked long before we even got into this discussion. So I don't think it has any bearing.
Thank you. Alderwoman from the 11th.
Thank you, Mr. President. If they did respond, I think the Alderman from the 24th and I, during the Housing and Urban Development Committee, we did ask for that response. And I want to go further in that I don't know when this deal was done, but Target knew that it was going to put a store in. They knew that they would have cost, and they knew. I mean, the timing is very odd, and they made the choice to get involved. I asked for a response. I've not gotten a response. I do not think that the Alderwoman from the 19th reached out to Target. I don't know who did, but someone within our city government did, or someone at this board did, and I'm not sure, but all I asked was for a response, and I haven't gotten one. And I will be that will heavily weigh on my decision here today. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion? Alderman from the 19th, you recognize to close.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I have thoroughly explained my position here on this bill. I think I've given clarity to everything. I also know that as we move forward, if we have nothing else to rely on, we should also rely on those statements that are made by alderperson, as I have through the past. When I am listening to an alderperson, I am giving them all due credit and respect on anything that they state. I also know that this is a very, very good project for this city. It is going to bring millions of dollars immediately to the city coffers. It's going to bring hundreds of jobs. And the fact that it's going to increase population because 196 units will be occupied. Probably most of those will be students who graduated that live somewhere else and choose to remain here in the city of St. Louis. Having the affordable work units also establishes other businesses that can probably springboard from there and stay in the city of St. Louis. We also know that as we look at these projects throughout the city, as we are trying to grow, as we are trying to improve our tax base, we are going to find many different incentives to make these things available. An opinion that has no influence of any real value should not be considered, should not be put into the fold of this particular bill. But we should also look at those people who are busy trying to support something else that has nothing to do with this. And for us to take it out of context, I think is a bit irresponsible. So as we move forward today, I think we should be looking at the exciting opportunity for our city. We should look at the new ways that we are creating these opportunities with less effect to our school districts and our city tax base. We should look at how we are going to be able to also ingratiate additional developers because they see that we are sincere in wanting development in this city. The other good thing about this particular deal, I know that the developer had been working on it about 2 years. But at the end of the day, when this was sent to the city for its evaluation, even though the 21-day period had expired, nobody wanted to walk away and just say, oh, well, and move forward. Everybody took time to be responsible in the consideration of this and work together to make sure that it was better for all. I thank you and I ask for full consideration in passing this board bill today.
All right, thank you. It's been moved by the Alderman from the 19th, seconded by the Alderman from the 14th, that we perfect Board Bill 113. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus.
Pass.
Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Aye.
Alderman Bosley.
Aye.
Alderwoman Evans.
Aye.
Alderman Page.
Aye.
Alderwoman Ingracia.
Aye.
Alderman Coder.
Abstain.
Alderwoman Rice.
Aye.
Alderman Gunther.
Aye.
Alderman Balmer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Martin.
Aye.
Alderman Stevens.
Pass.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Pass.
Alderwoman Howard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Green. Alderman Oldenburg.
Aye.
Alderwoman Peel. Alderman Todd.
Aye.
Alderwoman Davis.
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer.
Aye.
Alderman Muhammad. Alderman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderman Vaccaro.
Aye.
Alderman Narayan.
Aye.
Alderman Cone. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderwoman Navarro.
Aye.
President Reed.
Aye.
Alderwoman Tyus.
Aye.
Alderman Stevens.
Present.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Green. Alderwoman Peel.
Aye.
Alderman Muhammad. Alderman Cone. 24 aye votes, 1 abstained, and 1 voted present.
By vote, you stay in the motion, Alderman from the 19th and perfected Board Bill 113.
Thank you.
Board Bill 132, sponsored by Alderman Orion and the following alderpersons: Todd, Gunther, Ingracia, Rice, Stevens, Martin, Cone, Bosley, Spencer, Coder, and Schweitzer. A board bill repealing ordinance numbers 66419, 68404, and 69429 pertaining to the possession of marijuana and paraphernalia and updating local enforcement priorities, probable cause, and reasonable suspicion standards and disciplinary standards to harmonize city policy with Article 14 of the Missouri State Constitution.
Alderman from the 24th, you recognize on the perfection of Board Bill 132.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I'd like to start with just a little bit of history here. On November 6th.
Move for perfection?
Yes. Thank you. I'd like to move for perfection of Board Bill 132.
Moved by the Alderman from the 24th.
Second.
Seconded by the Alderman from the 9th. Please proceed, Alderman from the 24th.
Thank you. Now I'll get to the history lesson. On November 6th, 2018, voters passed what was then called Amendment 2, which is now codified as Article 14 in the Missouri State Constitution. Article 14 lays out the state's medical marijuana program. 83% of the residents of the city of St. Louis voted for what is now Amendment 14. And the amounts of marijuana and the language surrounding marijuana in this bill is taken directly from our Constitution now. So Board Bill 132 repeals previous marijuana ordinances and would bring our local ordinance into harmony with the state's Constitution, as well as further decriminalize personal amounts of marijuana. We worked with Director Isom on this to address probable cause and reasonable suspicion standards for the police department as well. We've seen in other jurisdictions where medical marijuana has passed, but there's not full adult use marijuana, that basically through pretty expensive litigation, the courts have decided that the odor and visual presence of marijuana alone is not typically probable cause for search, as an officer should assume basically that a person is a law-abiding citizen. And since there are now thousands of folks in St. Louis who are legally allowed to have in their possession marijuana, the odor or visual presence of marijuana should no longer be cause for search, but rather allow an officer to ask that individual if they have a medical marijuana card, if they're what's called a qualified patient, if their doctor has recommended that they use medical marijuana. Because if that person is what's called a qualified patient, then they have done nothing unlawful and they should not be subject to search or seizure. What this attempts to do is stop the creation of a second class of individual, which would perpetually be subject to search based on the presence of marijuana, either on their person or in their home, in their automobile. There's also a strong racial component here. We looked at just over 3 years of data here in the city of St. Louis, because we wanted data from both the most current data, but also pre-COVID data. because we all know that COVID really affected the kind of flow of people throughout the city. So when we looked at that data, we saw that nearly 600 people in the city were arrested for marijuana. We also saw that nearly 500 of those people were Black folks. And we know that Black folks from other data do not use marijuana at higher rates than any other racial group. In fact, a lot of studies have shown that Black folks use marijuana at lesser rates than white folks and Latino folks. So we do see a kind of a racial component here as well. This also has huge knock-on effects when someone is convicted for these small amounts of marijuana. This repeals I believe it's 2012 ordinance regarding the decriminalization of marijuana here in the city, which was a very progressive ordinance at the time. And I'm not taking anything away from that. But when that ordinance was created, it also created an incentive for many folks to plead guilty to to possession of small amounts of marijuana and pay a $25 fine. And that seems facially like a great thing, and it was great progress at the time. However, that guilty plea has huge knock-on effects in folks' lives, because then they've pled guilty to possession of a controlled substance. And even though they did it just to pay the $25 fine rather than to hash it out or, hire a criminal defense attorney who could get it amended to a littering charge or something like that, as a result of their guilty plea, they'll be denied public housing. They can be denied student loans. They can be denied federal benefits for the rest of their lives over pleading guilty and paying that $25 fine. Additionally, we worked with Rich Frank, the director of personnel, regarding city employees on this bill. And Rich Frank is in support of this bill, as was Dr. Isom, because this bill, as many of you may know, Rich Frank directed, or the director, he updated personnel rules to allow for an oral swab for drug testing, because his thought is that we shouldn't be controlling employees' off-duty lives. So this policy actually gives him space to further liberalize our personnel rules, which he believed may help us both hire on and maintain talent here in the city in numerous departments. So essentially, if an individual had a medical marijuana card, that the rule that he's looking at updating, I want to be clear on this, because the Board of Aldermen does not have the authority to tell the director of personnel what to do per our constitution, or excuse me, per our charter. We could raise a charter amendment, certainly, but I feel like it behooves us to work with the director of personnel rather than to go loggerheads with the director. So this policy allows him then to create a policy which would allow for a city employee with a medical card to not have what's called adverse employer action taken against them for using medical marijuana. So if they had a medical marijuana card, then they subsequently tested positive for cannabinoids in their system, that this would essentially prevent adverse action from being taken against them. I just don't believe that 83% of the city voted in favor of medical marijuana, but wanted to exclude one of the largest employers in the city. We've seen additionally that some of our, particularly with the fire department, there are folks that live in Illinois, which is a adult use state. So people who are living in the state of Illinois are entitled to use marijuana should they see fit. And it just doesn't make sense to lose that talent when someone is following the law. We've also seen some folks that are using CBD test positive for cannabinoids in their system and have adverse employer actions. We've actually lost firefighters as a result of that. I think it's also important to address what's not in the bill, because we did speak to experts about this. We worked with the city councilor on this. There was a desire to push this bill further, to push things like expungement for past offenses in it. And the city councilor weighed in and said, you know, essentially, I'm not sure that we can do that. That's likely up to the state courts. And so there were things that we wanted to do that we relied on folks for and did not put in this bill or took out of the bill. Ultimately, I think it's long past time that we updated these kind of relics of laws. Our citizens spoke quite clearly on November 6, 2018. It no longer makes sense to arrest, incarcerate, and create long-term negative offenses for anyone over the possession of personal amounts of marijuana. We haven't been doing it in practice here in the city, and it's time that we update our ordinances, just like the people of Missouri updated the Constitution. I'd like to thank all the aldermen who worked on this over the last 2 years, as well as the Director of Public Safety and the Director of Personnel and the City Councilor's Office. And I am happy to address any questions regarding this. Thank you.
Hey, Alderwoman from the 28th.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to the Alderman from the 24th for all of your work on this. I just would like to ask to be added as a co-sponsor. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that. Alderwoman from the 27th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Alderman, I'm sorry. Alderman Ryan, would you take questions, please?
Alderman Ryan, will you take questions? All right. Alderwoman from the 27th, please proceed.
Okay, thank you. My question is because I has voiced my concern in your hearing in regards to this bill, and I don't think people understand what the marijuana thing, and you have people that's working with heavy equipment and heavy it's a safety issue to me, because marijuana, as people knows, it affects your motor skills and it affects your mind. And so, and the other part that I'm concerned about, and I thank you for Black people that you all continuously to speak for us, because I don't think you all are asking Black people what they think. And so, especially when you have these kind of issues in your community and people are not understanding, I'll go along with the less than in regards to the marijuana, but I don't go along with, and the CBD, okay, I get that because they have a medical marijuana card. But on the other end, when I have people in my community that are being impacted by people that are using this, and they're not just using marijuana. So people need to be clear about that. They're lacing marijuana with other products. And so our community, as you say, Black folks are dealing with this on a daily basis. We're not dealing with this because you all decided it was bad for us in our community. We've been dealing with this for over 20 years. And so now we have an issue that we're going to say it's okay for firemen who are out here to save lives, policemen, refuge people who's handling heavy equipment, forestry people that can endanger their self and the community by being impacted from these drugs, because that's what it is. And so I understand with the justice system, Black people have been discriminated against. I get that. But all Black people aren't about breaking the law. And it's a lot of us that's out here that work every day, make money, and trying to survive. And it's not about us just out here being poor Black people. All of us are poor, uneducated, and ignorant to the fact of marijuana and its use. So I can't support something like that because now I'm hearing it's a target on Black people. And so I think that's a discrimination within itself. And so I don't know if your numbers show, but it's more than Black people that use these kind of drugs. And so because they're coming in our community and they're causing issues in our community. So that's my thing. I'm just having a problem with this because I'm just tired of people saying we need to give them a break. Well, who's going to give us a break? Because we're dealing with this every day of the crime and the craziness that's going on from using this drug. I get a little bit of drug, but not when it's to a point where it's impacting people's lives. I just can't support that. So thank you. Maybe I didn't ask the question. I'm sorry, Alderman Narayan, but it bothers me. And it's no reflection to you as Caucasian or Italian or whatever, but it impacts me as a Black woman that raised a Black son that white people keep feeling they have to speak for my people. And I don't need you all to speak for us. I'm real clear what our people need. And so, that's just where I'm at. I'm sorry.
All right, thank you, Alderman from the 16th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the board, Mr. President, will the Alderman from the 24th yield for some questions, please?
Alderman from 24th, we yield the questions to Alderman from the 16th.
Yes.
Alderman from the 16th, please proceed.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman, I appreciate the health component that's associated with this for sure, and the fact that it went to the Health and Human Services Committee. Is that correct?
Yes.
Great. Did any health professionals testify or make a statement, or the city's own director of health in that committee?
The city's director of health did not. It went to the health committee based on the alderman from the 18th, in part because of the alderman of the 18th's previous resolution, which this board adopted in bank regarding any drugs being a public health issue as opposed to a public safety issue.
Understood. Okay. Do you know how many medical marijuana cards have been issued for residents in the city of St. Louis by chance?
So I think statewide, we're looking at something like a 4% adoption rate or so. So if we were to just kind of extrapolate the numbers there and assume an average dispersal of folks, there'd be several thousand.
Okay. Right. What is there, about 6 million people in the state of Missouri? Okay. And Alderman, in committee, is there a mad rash of qualified patients being aggrieved here that they came forward and have brought testimony or have statements that they're either, again, being aggrieved or being harassed by police department that spawned this reaction? I'm just curious if we've heard testimony from any of those qualified patients that have said, hey, I'm getting hauled into municipal court and I'm simply trying to treat myself.
There has not been a huge rash of it, in part because this is just not what we're doing in practice these days. As I said, this is just kind of to update these kind of antiquated laws. The circuit attorney hasn't been pursuing charges on, I believe, less than 100 grams for quite some time, which has left the municipal court to deal with any citations that an officer would write. As we all know, the police department typically has bigger fish to fry around here than someone with small amounts of marijuana. So this is more about updating the laws as well as preventing what can be some pretty costly litigation on some of these issues that we've seen in other states when it does come up. In a lot of places, a lot of other states, we've seen things like probable cause and reasonable suspicion based on the odor or presence or visual presence of marijuana or marijuana paraphernalia end up going all the way to that state's Supreme Court based on municipal standards. And I'd like to avoid the taxpayers of St. Louis paying for that legal fight when I think they spoke pretty clearly that this just wasn't a priority for them.
Sure. Well, I appreciate that financial discipline, Alderman. I do. I'm glad you brought up the legal component and the legal harmonization that this bill is trying to achieve. Has there been any conversation or the ability to slow down for a second and ensure that we have compatibility with state law and ask for an opinion from the Attorney General's office, or even that of a statement or two or a fact that rises to the level of an opinion from the City Councilor's office? Is that something that you and the supporters of this bill would entertain?
I did discuss this with the City Councilor's office. As I said, there were parts of this bill that was going to potentially push further, particularly on the municipal front, as far as expungement of some past marijuana offenses. If you had a medical card, essentially that would expunge your previous conviction, which would help some of those folks on the housing student loan front. But the city councilor felt pretty strongly that that was something for the state courts. The state legislature recently, I think 2 years ago or so, expanded the state expungement program to include many more offenses than used to be included. And the city councilor felt that the state courts were a more appropriate venue for that type of thing. So there were things in the bill that we certainly changed to make sure that the city councilor was comfortable with this.
Okay. But no desire, either through your conversations there with the city councilor's office or the supporters and drafters here to just ensure that there is in fact that harmonization you speak of, with trying to get some input from the Attorney General of Missouri at all?
No, we did not reach out to Mr. Schmidt's office. This is something that we took the language directly from the Constitution. I'm not sure how much more harmony you can get than taking language directly from a superior document.
Okay. All right. I would like to ask you a little bit about you in the bill. There's some defined terms around public places. Let's see here. Publicly, public place, and openly, but I don't see those necessarily in anywhere else in the section.
Anywhere in the text. Yeah. So those are kind of left over from previous iterations of bills. You see that sometime in legislation where you're working with defined words, and then the clauses in which those words would appear, those defined words would appear, are stripped out through various discussions with people. So initially there was more discussion on on any public use of this substance, and so essentially the state law does not allow for public consumption of marijuana. It needs to be in a private place. And so
a qualified patient is not allowed to treat themselves in public, correct?
Exactly. Yeah, you can't just walk down the street smoking marijuana. You can. The Constitution lays out where is appropriate to do so, and we didn't kind of push that further here. That's a bit. it's something that could have been cleaned up that just wasn't.
So along those lines, thank you for bringing that up and addressing this. I circulated to the board here along and asked for Clerk Kennedy to place into the folder around Board Bill 132 what looked like an iteration of a bill that attempted this very measure or goals or virtue, if you will, that I believe the Right and Honorable Alderwoman from the 15th introduced back in the 2017-18 session, before medical marijuana, and the 83% of the city residents spoke in favor of medical marijuana. And I would, if you can grab that, Alderman, I'd be interested if you would entertain what looks like on the bottom of page 4 of that line 18, where it goes on to say the city of St. Louis may expend resources to enforce laws that permit civil or criminal punishment for the use of the possession of marijuana paraphernalia against. And it proceeds down with A through G. Let me know when you kind of get there. I'm most interested. I'm sorry, at the bottom of page 4, line 18.
Okay, I'm there.
Of what I circulated. Okay, and if you go to, I like the language here, particularly in letters C and D, that actually talk about the public displays and the consumption of marijuana, whether you're a qualified patient or not. And I think I could be inclined to support this bill if it was clear in here that whether you're a qualified patient or not, and odor of marijuana is smelled in the public, clouds, smoke, the witnessing or use of marijuana is seen in the public, in a public park where children play potentially, that still is subject to probable cause and officers enforcing the law. I could be inclined to support this bill if you would consider friendly amendments, if they'd be perceived as friendly amendments, of adding C and D in there. So I don't know if that would be up for your consideration or not. And let me know if that makes sense.
D would be a little bit trickier, I think, than C, just based on our own zoning that we created some time back. That would put many dispensaries in violation of our law then, because we I think it was Board Bill 1 or 2, the Alderman from the 7th introduced it regarding the zoning of medical marijuana. And we created that zoning at 0 feet. So a dispensary.
No, I understand that, but this would be about the use. So, right, the dispensaries are certainly private property. And maybe that D could be further tweaked to just say that, right, the use in a public place around these areas is it sort of further specifies.
Sure. And so that's it's already unlawful to walk around in public and do this. This is something that we spoke with Director Isom about. There's kind of a push and pull as to what resources we would like to use in reality on this, as opposed to what the letter of the law is. And whether or not it's great policy to arrest a qualified patient who is using marijuana, in an alley somewhere, that's certainly up for debate. But it is illegal.
Or outside of a church. I mean, you can sort of see
it is illegal. It is illegal, and there's no protection under current state law for that.
Right. And my point is, I think if we could get specific, and given that there are some holdover defined terms here around public and openness here, if we could simply say so that municipal judges and those who still care about the rule of law at a municipal level, it states pretty clearly that this is a public that the use of such, whether you're a qualified patient or not, is still illegal. Until we take that great step of recreational approval, I would appreciate if you would entertain at least the language in C that further kind of, again, just is an extension of the illegalness of it in open or public space. Whether the practice is there or not, and I don't disagree with you, Alderman, on what we kind of do in practice, but that would be one way that I think I could support the work you did here today.
Do you have a place where you'd like to see this punched in that we could make a quick on the fly friendly amendment?
Yeah, I mean, it probably makes sense in your bill around section 4. No, sorry, check that. Your section 3, page 4, line 16, where you talk about the use of resources and enforce marijuana laws.
Hold on, I'm getting this right in front of me real quick.
Yeah.
I don't have an issue with it. I just want to make sure that we can punch it in there and
yeah, and I apologize. I mean, this sort of this epiphany moment came to me to maybe potentially amend simply as I was in my line of questioning with you, Alderman. So I appreciate your patience here. Line 20, if you're looking at your version here of 132, that next sentence that starts, the city of St. Louis may expend resources, and then you say use paraphernalia against, and it looks like you've got kind of 1, 2, 3, and 5 rather uses of enforce. I would maybe just like to input what is the language there in C in the version that I circulated. Any individual or entity that openly or publicly displays or consumes marijuana, except for displays the person who has leasehold interest and express implied permission to consume that property. Wow.
Sure. Yeah. No, I'd be quite open to that amendment. Sounds like maybe you got
she's objecting to the alderman from the 16th. So that happens on a daily occurrence.
But yeah, I'd be happy to accept that friendly amendment here.
That's something that our attorney, Mr. President, just a point of order, our attorney and I can work with real quick offline to get that amendment punched in here.
Yes, and it could be a stated amendment unless a member of the board objects and wants to see it a printed amendment.
Would the appropriate action be for me to move to state that then at this point?
Yeah, you can move to state it, and if a member would like to see it in written form, then we would defer and get it in written form. If it's not too complicated of an amendment, it can probably just be stated.
Okay, and Alderman from the 16th, if you could again just tell me right where you'd want that punched in. I'm pulling up the language
I think he
that you had sent over.
I think he went to grab the kids.
Well, then can we circle back on this?
Yes,
Mr.
Alderman,
President.
Yes, Alderman from the 12th, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me lower my hand right quick, Mr. President. I would like to speak on the bill, but I would also like to ask the Alderman from the 24th to be, if he's open to being on hold for any corrections or potential questions.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Alderman from the 24th, will you yield the questioning to future questioning to the Alderman from the 12th?
Absolutely, anytime.
Alderman from 12th, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President and the board. Alderman Ryan, I'd like to thank you for your, what I see as proactivity on this. I think it's akin to your brilliant resolution earlier this year for Asian American and Pacific Islander constituents, with you being our only representative in our city government who is Asian American. So I appreciate your proactivity on this. And I do want to say that speaking to my constituents on this, my constituents have quite a few thoughts on medical marijuana. On the whole, they support it. In 2017, they supported Amendment 2, Constitutional Amendment 2, I should say, on the Missouri ballot, overwhelmingly about 80%. They did reject the other two constitutional amendments. However, they do not want, it's a thing. But the constituents I've spoken with are in support of this. They see it rather pragmatically as a personnel issue. So, you know, how can we retain officers? I've got quite a few officers. How can we retain firefighters? I've got quite a few firefighters. I understand that both unions are on board with this. How can we fill all the empty vacancies in City Hall? I've heard mutterings that it tends to be the medical marijuana issue that's barring, but I specifically want to speak to a few line items. And if you will, from the 24th, if you've got the document pulled up in front of you.
Let me get it pulled up here. I have the previous iteration of this that Oldenburg and I were just discussing.
And likewise, Alderman from the 24th, please just interrupt me because I will have my Zoom video down as I also look at the document. So please just
sure.
jump in. But let me know when you've got it up.
It is up.
Excellent. So on page 1 of the whereas, not the introductory page, but not the summary, but the first board bill page itself, excuse me. I want to look to line item, line 12, whereas individual residents of the state of Missouri are now permitted to be in possession of marijuana and to cultivate marijuana under certain circumstances. And then jumping down to 15, whereas the city of St. Louis seeks to avoid subjecting to invasive searches and seizures of citizens who are lawfully availing themselves to medical therapies provided for the state constitution. And I want to pose a question to you regarding constitutionality. So we've amended the Missouri state constitution to allow for medical treatments, and that's what this bill is concerned with. It's concerned with medical therapies, as outlined with line item 7, not line item, but line 15, availing themselves of medical therapies as provided in the state constitution. So, with the U.S. Department of Justice, do excuse my cat, with the U.S. Department of Justice with the Supreme Court ruling in 1973 regarding the 14th Amendment, that the due process clause of the 14th Amendment, I want to say it's maybe section 2, provides a right to privacy. Are we, by not passing this bill, in your opinion, are we potentially opening ourselves to a constitutional violation later down the line? If we say so I think there's things get a bit complicated here, because we have the push-pull between state law and federal law. So it's important that any medical marijuana from what the state calls seed to sale stays completely within the confines of the state of Missouri. That way it never enters what's called interstate commerce. And so there was a Supreme Court decision, United States Supreme Court decision, Gonzalez v. Raich, regarding this, where illegal marijuana is controlled by the federal government as a result of its effective interstate commerce. The Cole memorandum put forth by the Obama administration then laid out the concept that the federal government will not take adverse action against medical marijuana companies that are in compliance, medical marijuana companies or patients that are in compliance with their own state and local laws. And so
that left things really up to state Supreme Courts to decide. One of the issues that we have seen, though, is regarding these searches and seizures, which I think is really what you're trying to hone in on here. We have seen in other places, so the standard that a police officer must hold themselves to is what's called the reasonable police officer standard. It's what a reasonable police officer would do when in the shoes of the individual officer that the hypothetical or real situation is involving. What we've seen in some places is a reasonable police officer walk into a individual's home that is permitted to, say, cultivate marijuana. And in the state of Missouri, you can have, per the Constitution, you can have what's called 6 flowering plants, 6 non-flowering plants, and any number of clones. And you can be the caretaker of up to 2 more individuals, and several caretakers can reside in the same place. So a reasonable police officer could walk into a home and see 30 or 40 marijuana plants. They would, I think, reasonably assume that this may be an unlawful activity may be afoot. Now, if that officer then seizes those plants, and they're not being unreasonable by doing so, if and when they seize those plants, the individual, assuming that all their paperwork is in order and they are legal through the state, everything is on the up and up through the state, that individual has an actionable suit against then the city or the state for the value of those plants, because they're going to go sit in some evidence locker somewhere and die. And so then you end up with a situation where potentially the taxpayer is paying thousands of dollars for an individual's medical marijuana plants as a result of the search, even though that officer was acting in a reasonable fashion. So this part of this that we spoke to Director Isom about, and it's not codified in here because it makes more sense to do it through the academy than it does through a piece of legislation we're dealing with here. And it is to make sure that our officers moving forward know the difference between a flowering plant, a non-flowering plant, a clone, some of these Department of Health and Senior Services definitions, so that they can, in the field, react appropriately to both protect the rights of the citizenry as well as the taxpayer.
Yes, and you must forgive me, Alderman from the 24th, and colleagues here at the board. I'm working through some cold medicine, so I may not have been necessarily clear. I appreciate that you brought up what I believe would be the Heart of Atlanta Motel versus United States Supreme Court case of 1964, where essentially an
old interstate commerce case. Yeah.
Yes. Well, okay, good. At least I got that right. I want to speak specifically to the health aspect of it, because as outlined in your board bill on page 4, line 1, qualified patient means a Missouri medical marijuana card holder pursuant to Article 14, so on and so forth. And then down to page 7, section B, regarding, excuse me, subject to Civil Service Commission rule. We're talking about employees of the city. And my thought is, if we, say this board bill doesn't pass, I support it, my constituents support it, but say it doesn't pass, are we, as the city, setting ourselves up to potential constitutional violations or legal litigation, in that medical marijuana card users could argue that their 14th Amendment right to privacy, a private agreement for medical therapy between them and a licensed medical professional, had been violated by the city, should the city say, sorry, you can't work for us because you used a CBD or a THC-based substance that is currently forbidden.
Yes and no. Based on
sued, Alderman.
Based on what you're saying, yes and no. So you're not going to be able to bring that federal claim regarding marijuana in the federal courts. As far as CBD, there was a Hemp Farming Act. So CBD that tests at less than, I believe it's like 3% THC is now legal at the federal level. So you could potentially bring a claim there. I have no idea on the outcome of that claim. I think it'd be a reach, but someone could certainly raise the issue.
Well, and as we certainly know in this line of work, you can sue for anything. It doesn't mean it's going to go anywhere, but you can certainly sue. And I want to be considerate that if we have lost firefighters who are using CBD, which is federally legal, and if I pause, would you be able to define CBD for the board and its difference from THC or other marijuana substances?
Sure. CBD, it's like cannabidiol, something like that. It is another cannabinoid in the marijuana plant. THC is one of the active ingredients that causes what people would typically refer to as being high, the feeling of euphoria, the feeling of, all the various different effects. Most people chalk that up to THC. CBD is a different active element in the marijuana plant that does not cause that feeling of euphoria.
Mm-hmm. And thus, because CBD lacks.
Now there's also Delta 8, Delta 9, all these different,
variations. Okay.
Yeah.
But the key component is that they don't contain THC, which is the active ingredient, not active ingredient, but the active molecule, I guess, that would affect one's motor skills in operating heavy equipment. So I'm sort of belaboring the point, Alderman Narayan, and I'd like to wrap up. I think I would be, if we are to vote this down today, or if we are not to pass this out, I would like a legal opinion from the city councilor, who, in my experience, does not like to comment on constitutionality, as a small aside there, but I would like a legal opinion on any potential fallback that this might be setting the city up for. My constituents support it. My constituents, they don't care about these big constitutional items as much as they care about getting their trash picked up, getting their city services completed. And if having a medical marijuana card is keeping us from having city employees, well, then full steam ahead with taking it out. And then on a personal note on this bill, I come from a small lumberjack village in southeastern Missouri. The US Census put us at 194. We are less than 200 in Marquand, Missouri. And opioids have wrecked Marquand. And we are finding across every state that has legalized marijuana, both medical or recreational, that it is helping to address the opioid crisis. And I mean, a medical marijuana facility in Fredericktown, Fredericktown being the big city for Marquand, so let's understand the caliber of what we're speaking to, but that could save my little village of family. So I'm in support of this. If this helps get our trash picked up, especially our bulk and yard waste, that's been my week. If this helps to get more officers into the city and it helps make us a little more appealing to new families and to civil servants, if we can revitalize a sense of civic duty in our civil service, full steam ahead. And if not, if this fails, well, then let's outlaw it again. But you've got my support, Alderman. And with that, I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Alderman from the 23rd.
Yeah, just quick 2 points. One, we're not passing this out today. This is only perfection. So this is the place to make the changes. And I think that Alderman Oldenburg, and Alderman Ryan have pretty much agreed that to add this, so it makes it a little easier to come out. I can tell you some of my concerns, but I plan to vote for it, especially with the amendment. But what happens in the case that police officer, there's a shooting and he's test positive for marijuana? I mean, does he have the right to say, no, you can't test me for that? I got a medical card, so you can't do that.
Is that a question directed towards me, or are you just
Alderman Ryan? He hasn't asked you to yield.
I'm just going through it, and then I will yield. But I just wanted to bring up the point that this is only perfection, and that this is the place to get it put together in a way that and then also know that what we do in the city of St. Louis. When you drive over the line, which is like 3 blocks from where I live in the Maplewood or somewhere, them same laws are not going to take effect. And so you can't go over there and then a police officer pulls you over and you go, yeah, but I can do that over here. So I always caution when we make laws here that should be made statewide so that there's no difference between jurisdiction to jurisdiction. I always caution that. But so I will ask that question so it could be answered to Alderman Ryan, and then I'm going to yield past that.
All right. Are you asking Alderman from 24th to yield? Yes. Alderman from 24th will yield, or Alderman from the 23rd?
Absolutely.
Alderman from the 23rd, please proceed.
So it has to do with someone involved in a car crash, or a police officer in a shooting, or a trash truck driver that hits another car, or puts the dumpster through a fence, which happens a little bit more often than it should. But what happens in those incidents, and they say, gee, well, I'm on medical marijuana. So
in the bill here, it specifically states that nothing in this bill is a defense for what we call acute on-the-job intoxication. So you can't, just the same as we don't care if your doctor prescribes you any number of medications. If you come to work under the influence and you're unable to, do your job well, or you become problematic because of that, then an adverse employer action can be taken against you. You can be suspended, fired, on and on down the line. But yeah, nothing in this bill prevents the director of personnel from taking an adverse employer action against any employee who is acutely intoxicated on the job. This simply protects off-duty behavior.
I mean, can I expand? So what happens?
Absolutely.
In the case, now you're talking about discipline, but what happens in the case of, let's just say, whether it's a shooting or a trash truck driver, did the police have the right then to start to test them because they can smell marijuana in the vehicle?
Yeah. So ultimately, under the charter here, so are we talking about a city employee, or are we talking about
no, it's a city employee?
Okay.
So on the surface, I don't have a problem with this. It's just a couple things I thought I'd bring up.
No, happy to discuss. So for a city employee, basically, the reason that we had to be so careful around that personnel language and work with Rich Franks quite a bit on it is that the charter lays out pretty clearly what is in the director of personnel's discretion. So all that this does is Rich Franks did not want to change this rule kind of unilaterally without some buy-in from the legislative branch of our local government here. So this basically is potentially the legislative branch's buy-in to allow him to craft a rule regarding this. And again, the legislation states that nothing in this legislation protects someone showing up, intoxicated on the job.
No, I guess what I'm asking, it seems that in it talks about you can't really do anything about the smell or the sense that there is something. So let's just say somebody driving a Wiggett, so we don't say it's any department. Somebody driving a Wiggett runs over somebody on a street corner.
Mm-hmm.
He's on the job. He's doing whatever. He's driving his Wiggett and he kills somebody. And clearly the police can smell marijuana, and that it seems to me that this bill might prevent them from saying, we can smell, because of the smell that we're going to assume now that you're high and we want to take you in and test you or do a blood draw or something.
Sure. So that's something that we worked with Director Isom on quite a bit on this to craft that standard. So essentially, it's that the smell or visual presence of marijuana alone cannot be probable cause or reasonable suspicion. It can be one part of what's called the totality of the circumstances. So if the officer says, I see marijuana, you smell like marijuana, you just ran your car off the road, your eyes are, bloodshot, and you seem to constantly be losing track of what we're talking about. I think that you're under the influence of marijuana right now and you are driving a car. Then that's something totally different, because they've put together what they call the totality of the circumstances. It's not just them saying it smells like marijuana and so now I'm going to, search you. They're saying, hey, I've looked at this whole situation, and given the totality of what I see, I believe that there's crime afoot.
Well, like I said, this is as we go through this next week between perfection, in fact, we got a couple of meetings next week. So between perfection and actually passing this, I'll weigh everything. I never have too much problem perfecting a bill. This is the place, obviously committee's the best place to make changes, but then we got a second shot for everybody to weigh in. It's not on the committee. And so anyway, I will yield back and just listen. Like I said, I don't have a problem when it comes to perfection of a bill.
And if you do have any friendly amendment suggestions, I'd be happy to hear them.
No, I appreciate that. I'm just going to sit back now. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any further discussion? Alderman from the 16, would you like me to come to you, or the Alderman from the?
No, you can proceed. I just thank you.
All right,
Mr.
welcome.
President. I'm going to work on a written amendment if everyone can hang tight here.
All right, thank you. Alderman from the 3rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Oh man, sticking up in the back there. Hope everybody's having a great day. Number one, I appreciate Alderman from the 24th working very hard on this, and everybody who put their name on it as a sponsor. This is sometimes very difficult, especially in our communities when we have a lot of different conversations and things that have happened for years that have preyed on the different circumstances that plague our community regularly. We grew up hearing about, of course, we all saw those commercials. Tell your mom you were busy getting high while your sister drowned in the pool. Different commercials like that really kind of demonized this and made it as an actual drug. And it was funded by multiple corporations, the federal government themselves. also the same government that's now given us the legal rights to smoke it, bury seeds in our backyards and be able to grow them. And grow plants. And in other jurisdictions across the United States, it has been legalized recreationally, which means anybody can smoke it, sell it. You can walk up, just like you can go right now and buy yourself some tobacco at a gas station. You can go in and buy you some weed. And this is once again in other states. But, the reason those things are important is because we always talk about how important it is for our city to look forward, what we're working on doing to progress us, and how we can become a not just an innovative city, but a city where people see us growing in a direction that they like to move their family to and eventually repopulate this city. To do those things, we're going to have to get in line with a lot of the legislation that other cities has taken and given people more freedoms over their own lives. More people die from alcohol every single year, and alcohol-related deaths, alcohol-related car accidents, than people smoking weed. You can smoke as many blunts, if you will, as you like, and most you'd probably do is pass out. With alcohol, it's much different. It has killed multiple people through cirrhosis of the liver. I'm not a medical professional, but I can guarantee you, if you analytically look up the amounts of people who has died from smoking marijuana versus the people who have died from being inebriated from alcohol or alcoholism or alcohol-related incidents, you see that there are much more alcohol-related incidences related to people dying or being putting themselves in danger or endangering other people than marijuana. I know, once again, especially for some of our, older people who are on the board, and for our younger people, I think we're all going through different generations of expectations. When I was growing up, a lot of the older people around my age were smoking crack. That was the thing. And my generation looked at that and said, man, people are, strung out here on the corners. We don't want to be like such and such uncle, or we don't want to be like the lady down the block. I don't want to be like my auntie or cousin. They really got a problem. They're still in TVs doing all these extra things. You actually see them hurting themselves and, just looking completely out of control when on those drugs. So our generation said, we smoke weed. That's what the generation of the, I would say the millennials do. Well, no, they're doing Molly and other things. But point I'm making is every generation, you learn from the generation before you mistakes. That's what our goals are. Our goals are to try to ensure that our children don't inherit issues and problems from what it is that we ourselves inherited from the people who passed the torch on to us. And I think the entire nation is headed towards a place eventually where we'll have recreational legalization for marijuana all across the United States. And we don't and have not seen an influx of marijuana-related deaths in Colorado, California, or any other place where you've seen recreational use, and that's used for everybody for consumption. You haven't heard about people going into a bar where they, can smoke and eat, and somebody pulling out and having a car accident, multiple fatal deaths in the recreational places that exist right now. So, with those things being said, we're always looking at the analytical data, always looking at what other cities are doing. If you look at these other cities, you see crime reduction in a lot of them. In a lot of these neighborhoods where you have drug wars going on, you see some of those things reduced because now you can just go get it from a store. So, there definitely has been things in the past that we, still in our communities are grieved by. We see people, get pulled over and they got big bags of weed and big old guns. Marijuana is not necessarily just associated with, the guns. It's generally marijuana and dope and some pills and other things in the car. Nobody in this city is really getting rich off marijuana. It's too accessible. It isn't one of those drugs unless you are growing it. You're not getting rich off of it. You're not making that much money, and that's why you have to couple it with something else. You got to couple it with some crack, some heroin. You got to do something else other than just sell weed. It's very difficult to just sell weed. You got to have another hustle. So, with that being said, the more opportunity that we give folks to have access to it, I think it lessens the drug trade and the amount of issues that come with this war on drugs that we're having, and we feel like we all are fighting. Once again, the federal government has been locking people up for years for marijuana, and now we're expunging people all across the United States, not locking nobody up. So those things are things that we will see happen in our future at some point in time. Where I'm hoping to see expungements happen. I'm hoping to see individuals who have been locked up, not just for having a few ounces, hell, a few pounds. The stuff that you see out here right now, and I do agree with Alderwoman Boyd, on some of her points. People are out here lacing, and they always have laced marijuana with different drugs. But that's why you also, like they were doing before, you teach your children, you teach, the schools. This is our job as a community to make sure we educate individuals on what is going on, so you don't find yourself smoking something that's laced with something that you wasn't intending on smoking. All these children, anybody who are a parent that's watching this, make sure you teach your children, if you didn't roll it up, don't smoke it up. If you wasn't right there when somebody rolled it, don't put it, to your mouth. Everybody is not smoking what you're smoking. That's with anything. That's with heroin. That's with crack. That's with anything that people out here smoking. People get bad pills all the time. We have more people dying from right now, these opioids, and people getting bad pills from, these street cooks, and than people smoking weed. So, once again, with those things being said, I believe that this bill's it isn't intended on saying, hey, everybody come smoke weed and come put it in your car now. I believe the intent is what it's saying is now it is medicinally acceptable for you to have it, and for medicinal uses, and for people who have those medicinal uses, you can now transport it. So we don't want to have individuals who can legally smoke and have an aroma coming out their car to end up with some other issue with law enforcement because, they are treating you like everybody else when you actually, in fact, aren't like everyone else. I can smoke weed. I've been given, go ahead by my doctor. The state said it was okay. All of the people that are in this state overwhelmingly said it's okay for me to have this in my car. So, I don't want to be illegally searched or my time to be taken away. But, it's already been taken away by going to go get my license, doing what's necessary to ensure that I can, I've done what I need to do to be able to carry this. So, I definitely think that it's important for us to get in line with what's going on within the state. And even if the state, wasn't doing this, or not necessarily the state, of other municipalities were not, taking this approach, we got, gun problems going on right now. And nobody's having as many gun issues, I believe, in Missouri than St. Louis. And we've asked and asked over and over again to do something about these gun laws. We don't see a gang of municipalities or rural areas coming down trying to change their laws for us in particular. So, I'm not necessarily worried about what happens from jurisdiction to jurisdiction with this. We need to do the best we can to protect the people and the citizens that do live in the city and individuals who come and transport through this city. So also, I just want to speak to that one line. I just want you to know exactly where it is because it was spoke about a few times where, and I know you cleared it up also, Alderman Ryan, but just to speak to it, as far as employees smoking and possibly, being high on the job and not being able to adequately do the job. It's right here in section 5. It'd be line section 5.
Alderman from the 3rd, would you like the Alderman from the 24th to yield to question?
No, he doesn't have to. I'm just getting ready to read this line and I'll be done. I've kind of read the whole thing. I just want people to know what those particular sections are if they haven't had a chance to look at it. But right here at section C, line 6, says nothing in this section shall prevent the city of St. Louis from taking adverse employer actions based on acute marijuana intoxication while on duty. Once again, Alderman from 24th said that. But if you have the chance to look at it, it's right there. So, it does make sure that we have some provisions in there for folks that think they can abuse this ordinance if it becomes an ordinance, but they can abuse this board bill. It also states here, for folks that have concern on, people just having to go ahead to transport it. 1 second, pull it back up. All right, section 4. Go down here to line 5. Line 1. Actually, we'll go to section 4A. Section 4B. It says, notwithstanding subsection A of this section 4, the smell of marijuana, whether raw or burnt, the visual presence of smoke or vapor of marijuana, the visual presence of marijuana or marijuana-infused products, or the visual presence of flower and plants may be sufficient to establish a finding of reasonable suspicion, which may be ground subject to officers' discretion, rooted in the analysis of totality of the circumstances for a brief stop for the sole purpose of determining whether an individual is a qualified patient. So basically, that's still giving our officers the discretion to be able to look at the circumstances that are going on when they pull somebody over and decide whether or not that person is a qualified patient, and assess the situation also, even if they're not a qualified patient. It says here at line 2, if the police officer is unable to verify for any reason that an individual is not a qualified patient, the officer may give him an analysis of the totality of circumstances, can collect all information to issue a summons. If an individual appears in any court date with proof that they're a qualified patient, the matter shall be dismissed. So basically, this still gives our officer, the wiggle room that they need to be able to look at a situation and determine it based on circumstantial evidence on whether or not they believe somebody to be in violation of our ordinance or be in violation of the law. So I think, the thought of this just gives people a pass is something that, we can lay to rest with them having this type of discretion. And, it once again is like having another tool in the toolbox, and it gives individuals who, do have a medical marijuana card. I think the feeling that they need to have as far as feeling protected and being a protected resident or visitor here within the city, and knowing that we do care about people's individual rights. I think that's one thing that we're dealing with now with this shot, a gang of other things. We won't go too deep into it, but it's people vote and say that it's okay for something to go in them, and the mass majority of folks in that state or jurisdiction agree with it, then, who are we to say, we shouldn't get in line with it? We're only a few out of the many who've been chosen to represent the many. So with that being said, I yield back. I appreciate you, Alderman from the 24th. I'm looking forward to voting for it.
All right, thank you, Alderman. Alderman from the 7th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I'll be brief. I'm just rising in support of the board bill and thanking the primary sponsor for his comments today and for his work on this. I think it's a very well-written bill, and it's certainly a challenging issue, as the Alderman from the 12th sort of alluded to in some of his questioning. We're still in an era where we've got states with differing laws. We've got, we're talking about a substance that's still technically a controlled substance at the federal level and illegal. My hope is we get to a time in the not too distant future where we have harmony amongst the states and we have some federal intervention to clean this up, so folks can use marijuana as it's now intended by so many states, which is either as a recreational activity or as medicine, as it is here in Missouri. So I think this is a step in the right direction. The comments in particular about how in our current structure we've essentially decriminalized marijuana, but we still have people in the city pleading guilty to low-level offenses that really can impact them in the long term and their ability to get loans and these convictions, even if they're just municipal offenses, can stay on the record. So I think this is great, and I hope our colleagues will support it. And I plan on voting aye. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Alderman from the 16th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I'd like to move for an adoption of Amendment 1 to Board Bill 132.
All right, please state the amendment.
Okay, give me 1 second. I have it here, hang on. Dang it. Okay, it should be found in everyone's iDrive. Amendment 1. Here we go. To amend Board Bill 132, page 5, line 13, beginning on page 5, line 13, strike out the words number 5, any individual who is not in compliance with this state or local law, and insert in lieu thereof to read the words and figure as follows. Beginning on page 5, line 13, after the words, insert the following words and figures. Any individual or entity that openly and publicly displays or consumes marijuana to expect for displays and consumption on private residential property where the person consuming marijuana is either an owner of the property, a person who has a leasehold interest in the property, or any other person who has been granted express or implied permission to consume marijuana on the property by the owner or the lessee of the property. Number 6, any individual who is not in compliance with this state or local law.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 16th. Entertain a second on that motion.
Second.
Seconded by the Alderman from the 9th. Any discussion? It's been moved and seconded that we adopt amendment number 1 to Board Bill 132. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Oppose?
Aye.
Motion carries. Now what's before us is the perfection of Board Bill 132. If there isn't anything further, Alderman from the 24th, we will recognize you to close on the perfection of Board Bill 132.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I just want to thank everyone who weighed in on this. I know that this can be kind of a tricky subject. It's great that I think we were able to come up with what seems like a good compromise here. I'd like to thank the Alderman from the 16th for putting forward that friendly amendment. And at this point, I'd like to move to perfect Board Bill 132 as amended.
It's already been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Oppose? Motion carries.
That's the extent of board bills for perfection.
Third reading consent.
Board Bill 110, Committee Sub, and Board Bill 100.
Alderman from the 10th, you're recognized on the motion. Hold on a second. Alderman from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to move Board Bill 100 to the informal calendar.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that. Board Bill 100 on the informal calendar.
So noted.
All right, so Alderman from the 10th, you're recognized on the motion for third reading consent calendar as amended. Alderman from the 22nd, you're recognized on the motion for the third reading consent calendar as amended. All right, let's go to Alderman from the 19th, you're recognized on the third reading consent calendar as amended.
I move to adopt the perfection consent calendar.
That third reading consent.
Perfection and consent
Yeah,
as amended.
Yeah, the third reading consent as amended.
Second.
That moved by
Second.
Alderman from the 19th,
Second.
seconded by the Alderman from the 14th. Any discussion? The moved and seconded that we adopt our third reading consent calendar as amended. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus. Aye. Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Aye.
Alderman Baldwin.
Aye.
Alderwoman Evans.
Aye.
Alderman Page.
Aye.
Alderwoman Ingracia.
Aye.
Alderman Coulter.
Abstain.
Alderwoman Rice.
Aye.
Alderman Gunther.
Aye.
Alderman Vollmer. Alderwoman Martin.
Aye.
Alderman Stevens.
Present.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Green. Alderman Oldenburg.
Pass.
Alderwoman Peel. Alderman Todd. Alderwoman Davis.
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer. Aye. Alderman Muhammad. Alderman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderman Vaccaro.
Aye.
Alderman Narayan.
Aye.
Alderman Cone. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderwoman Navarro.
Aye.
President Reed.
Aye.
Alderman Balmer. Alderwoman Howard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Green. Alderman Oldenburg.
Aye.
Alderwoman Peel.
Aye.
Alderman Muhammad. Alderman Cone. 23 aye votes, 1 abstain, and 1 voted present.
By your vote, you sustain the motion. Alderman from the 19th and third read and finally passed the aforementioned bills. Third reading, report of engrossments.
Board Bill 110, Committee Sub.
All other business being suspended, the president shall in open session affix his signature hereto to the end that these may become law. Alderman from the 19th, you're recognized on the courtesy resolutions calendar.
President and members of the board, I move that we adopt our courtesy resolution calendar.
Moved by the Alderman from the 19th.
Second.
Seconded by
Second.
seconded by the Alderman from the 14th and the 4th. Any discussion? Alderman from the 14th. Alderman from the 14th.
Yes. Oh,
You have your hand up. Okay.
no, I'm sorry. I didn't know I had my hand up. Sorry.
Oh, that's all right. It's been moved and seconded that we adopt our courtesy resolutions calendar. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Oppose. Motion carries. Alderman from the 1st, you're recognized.
Mr. President, members of the board, if this is appropriate, I don't want a unanimous consent. I just want to suspend the rules to introduce Resolution 138.
All right. It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the
Second.
1st, seconded by the Alderman from the 23rd, that we suspend the rules for the purposes of introducing resolution. Did you say 138?
Yes, sir. It should be on, you should have it.
It's in the drive. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? It's been moved and seconded. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus.
Aye.
Alderwoman Middlebrook. Alderman Bosley.
Aye.
Alderwoman Evans.
Aye.
Alderman Page.
Aye.
Alderwoman Negracia.
Aye.
Alderman Coder.
Aye.
Alderwoman Rice.
Aye.
Alderman Gunther. Alderman Palmer. Alderwoman Martin.
Aye.
Alderman Stevens.
Aye.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Green. Alderman Oldenburg.
Aye.
Alderwoman Peel.
Aye.
Alderman Todd. Alderwoman Davis.
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer.
Aye.
Alderman Muhammad. Alderman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderman Vaccaro.
Aye.
Alderman Narayan.
Aye.
Alderman Cone. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderwoman Navarro.
Aye.
President Reed.
Aye.
Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Aye.
Alderman Balmer. Alderwoman Green. Alderman Todd.
Aye.
Alderman Collins Muhammad. Alderman Cone. 25 aye votes.
By vote, you stay in the motion, Alderman from the 1st, and suspend the rules for purposes of introducing resolution 138. Madam Clerk, please place the aforementioned resolution at the end of the first reading of resolutions calendar.
So noted.
First reading of resolution.
Resolution 136 sponsored by Alderwoman Davis, authorizing the provision of a project exemption certificate in connection with the plan for the industrial development for Steel Coat Gratiot LLC.
Alderwoman from the 19th, you recognize on the first reading of resolution 136.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. This is the other bill that we did not talk about in length earlier, is a companion to support the opportunity for our CID to move forward to support the development. It's very clearly stated, has no complications. Thank you.
All right, would you like to request unanimous consent?
I shall request unanimous consent.
Hearing no objection, would you like to make the motion for adoption?
I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution number 113.
136.
I'm sorry, 136. I'm looking at it wrong.
Second.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 19th, and I think, who was the second on that? The Alderman
22nd.
from the 22nd.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? It's been moved.
Mr.
and
President, sorry, I got
Oh, yeah.
raising my hand.
Oh, yeah, you have to abstain.
I just want the record to show that I'm going to abstain on voting for this, even if we take a roll call, just because my firm's involved.
Okay, all right. It's been moved by the Alderman from 19th, seconded by the Alderman from 22nd, that we adopt resolution 136. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus.
Aye.
Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Aye.
Alderman Bosley.
Aye.
Alderwoman Evans.
Aye.
Alderman Page.
Aye.
Alderwoman Ingracia.
Aye.
Alderman Coder.
Abstain.
Alderwoman Rice.
Aye.
Alderman Gunther.
Aye.
Alderman Balmer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Martin.
Aye.
Alderman Stevens.
Present.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Green. Alderman Oldenburg.
Aye.
Alderwoman Peel.
Aye.
Alderman Todd.
Aye.
Alderwoman Davis.
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer.
Aye.
Alderman Collins Muhammad. Alderman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderman Vaccaro.
Aye.
Alderman Narayan.
Aye.
Alderman Cone. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Aye. I'm sorry.
Alderwoman Navarro.
Aye.
President Reed.
Aye.
Alderwoman Green. Alderman Collins Muhammad. Alderman Cone. 24 aye votes, 1 abstain, and 1 voted present.
I vote, staying the motion, Alderman from the 19th, and adopted resolution 136.
Thank you.
Resolution 138, sponsored by Alderwoman Tyus, Alderwoman Evans, Alderman Gunther, Alderwoman Green, Alderwoman Ingracia, Alderwoman Rice, and Alderman Stevens. The appropriation of the name Homer G. Phillips Hospital.
Alderwoman from the first, you're recognized on the first reading of resolution 138.
Mr. President, members of the board, first of all, I want to give apologies to the clerk. There are many organizations that had me write this resolution. It is long, but it is important to them that it be read. So I'd ask that the clerk read the resolution, please.
Madam Clerk, please read resolution 138.
Resolution 138, the appropriation of the name Homer G. Phillips Hospital. Whereas Homer G. Phillips grew up in Sedalia, Missouri, the son of a Methodist minister who had been a slave. Mr. Phillips studied law at the historic Black College, Howard University in Washington, D.C., and moved to St. Louis just before the World's Fair in 1904. In St. Louis, he married Ida Alexander and established himself as a lawyer. Whereas Mr. Phillips became prominent in both civil rights and politics, and was the founder of the Citizens Liberty League, advocating for Blacks after St. Louis city residents voted in 1916 to mandate segregation in housing. Mr. Phillips was influential in the local Republican Party, which was a common affiliation for Blacks before the New Deal. And whereas in 1920, in the segregated city of St. Louis, there were 2 public city-owned hospitals, City Hospital Number 1, which whites in the city of St. Louis used, and City Hospital Number 2, a former medical college in Mill Creek Valley, which was woefully inadequate, segregated, and Blacks were forced to use. And whereas in 1923, the city of St. Louis set aside money from a bond issue for a new hospital. Blacks wanted their new city-owned hospital in a Black neighborhood. White doctors wanted the new hospital next to City Hospital Number 1, which was located south of downtown. Homer G. Phillips persuaded city officials to build a new hospital at St. Ferdinand Avenue and Whittier Street in the Ville neighborhood, which at the time was the home of the Black business class. And whereas Homer G. Phillips served his clients and Black community with enthusiasm and intensity, and his passion made him a few enemies. On the morning of June 18, 1931, Phillips left his home at 1121 Albert near Fountain Park and walked to Delmore Boulevard to catch a streetcar downtown. Two men approached him, one or both of them opened fire. Phillips, 51, died on the sidewalk. Whereas thousands of mourners packed St. Paul AME Church, which was then located at Leffingwell and Lawton Avenues, for Phillips' funeral. In 1931, after Homer G. Phillips' murder, the City of St. Louis Board of Aldermen posthumously voted to name the new Black public hospital in his memory, and thus the historic Homer G. Phillips Hospital became an institutional cultural icon in the historic Ville neighborhood. Whereas the name Homer G. Phillips is closely associated with the Ville neighborhood, as are many of the institutional icons such as Sumner High School, Antioch Baptist Church, St. James AME, James House Senior Housing, St. Matthew's Apostle Parish, St. Philip's Lutheran Church, Annie Malone Children's Home, and the Tandy Community Center, and said institutions and their names are the soul of the Ville neighborhood and have played a vital and integral role in the community's life. Whereas Homer G. Phillips Hospital opened in 1937 in the proud Ville neighborhood at St. Ferdinand Avenue and Whittier Street, the very site that Homer G. Phillips himself chose for the hospital. The opening of the hospital was a major event in the city, and thousands of people lined the streets for blocks around the hospital. Among the guests of honor of the dedication of the hospital were Missouri Governor Lloyd C. Stark, the U.S. Secretary of Internal, the Honorable Harold Ikes, Congressman Thomas Hennings Jr., and the City Comptroller Louis Hope. Whereas Homer G. Phillips Hospital remained a crucial hospital for the Blacks, the Ville neighborhood, and surrounding communities until it closed in 1979. By then, St. Louis Mayor Jim Conway, it now serves as a senior housing center. Whereas in recent years, a developer, Paul McKee, who has received massive financial incentives from the City of St. Louis, has started a redevelopment project at or near the site of the old Pruitt-Igoe housing project site. And one of the projects in the development includes a proposed private 3-bed clinic, urgent care, or medical center, depending on the various view of the proposal. Currently, the proposed site is a private 3-room clinic, and the developer has proposed to name the project the Homer G. Phillips Hospital. And whereas Mr. Paul McKee proposed for a new medical facility in North St. Louis is admirable and supported in the community that lacks medical facility, he has made the proposal to appropriate the name Homer G. Phillips Hospital without meeting with or initiating conversation with the Ville neighborhood, the Board of Aldermen, or any other members of the African American community to allow them to weigh in on what believed to be inappropriate cultural appropriation of the name that is closely aligned with the Ville neighborhood. And whereas the proposed naming of the private 3-bed clinic or hospital at this new development in the Carl Square neighborhood has caused the Honorable Tashora O. Jones, the mayor of the City of St. Louis, the Honorable Darlene Green, Comptroller of the City of St. Louis, the Honorable Carla May, State Senator of the 4th District, and the Honorable the Honorable Rasheen Aldrich, State Representative of the 77th District, the Honorable Mavis Thompson, License Collector of the City of St. Louis, several honorable members of the Board of Aldermen, Ms. Yvonne Jones, President of Homer G. Phillips Nurses Alumni, several longtime community activists such as Ollie Stewart, Mr. Percy Green, Ms. Jamala Rogers, Mr. Will Amusa, Ms. Zenobia Thompson, and Ms. Pamela Talley to call for the developer, Mr. Paul McKee, and the Board of Directors of the private 3-bed clinical hospital to choose a more appropriate name for this project that does not appropriate the Homer G. Phillips Hospital name. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that this Honorable Board of Aldermen of the City of St. Louis finds that while the developer proposal for a new medical facility in North St. Louis is admirable, the name Homer G. Phillips Hospital is an asset that is best kept in the Ville neighborhood, that this neighborhood cultural iconic name should not be culturally appropriated by anyone, that we suggest the developer find a name that is more suitable for the neighborhood for which the medical facility is proposed, as there are many leaders from the community who have substantially contributed to the community and to which naming a new medical facility after them would be a wonderful tribute. We further direct the clerk of the Board of Aldermen to spread a copy of this resolution across the minutes of this proceeding and to mail a copy of this resolution and a letter written by the sponsors of this resolution to the developer, Paul McKee, and the Board of Directors to the proposal private medical project, advising them of our support of their new medical project, but also advising them of this board's position opposing their project and appropriately culturally appropriating the Homer G. Phillips Hospital. Lastly, the board invites Mr. Paul McKee and the Board of Directors of the proposed private medical project to appear before this esteemed board to answer inquiries regarding their attempt to appropriate the Homer G. Phillips Hospital and helping them to find a more appropriate name of their proposed medical project. Introduced this 19th day of November, 2021 by the Honorable Sharon Tyus, Alderwoman 21st Ward, Honorable Dwayne Evans, Alderwoman 4th Ward, Honorable Dan Gunther, Alderman 9th Ward, Honorable Megan Green, Alderwoman 15th Ward, Honorable Christine Ingracia, Alderwoman 6th Ward, Honorable Annie Rice, Alderwoman of the 8th Ward, and Honorable Bill Stevens, Alderman of the 12th Ward.
Alderwoman from the 1st.
Mr. President and members of the board, I just want to thank you for saying the 1st, not the 21st. I don't want to be the Alderman from the 21st Ward. Okay. I served with a couple of those, and I am not that person. I've been the 20th, but not the 21st. I would like to send this to, and I struggled over this because there's no really committee that really addresses this situation, but I do want to send this. I would ask that this resolution be sent to the health committee because that's the closest thing. But I wanted people to know that we, the Board of Aldermen, gave the name in the first place. I thought that was an important thing to know. But I would like to have a hearing. So if the chair of the health committee does not oppose that, I would like it sent to the health committee.
All right, it's been moved by the Alderman from the 1st that we assign resolution 138 to health. Entertain a second on that motion.
Second.
Seconded by the Alderwoman from the 4th and Alderman from the 9th. Alderman from the 23rd.
Yes, I had sent something to the Alderwoman in the first two to add my name to this.
Okay.
I didn't hear it, but I think I'm pretty sure I responded to the email saying, yes, add my name.
All right, Madam Clerk, please make note of that. It's been moved and seconded that we send resolution 138 to health. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Madam Clerk, please assign resolution 138 to health.
So noted.
Second reading.
We have none.
Miscellaneous and unfinished business.
We have none.
Announcements.
Saturday, November the 20th, legislation will have a meeting at 10 a.m. via webinar. Monday, November 22nd, legislation will have a meeting at 1 p.m. via webinar. Tuesday, November 23rd, full board meeting, 10 a.m. via webinar. Wednesday, November 24th, full board meeting, 10 a.m. via webinar. Thursday, November 25th, the office will be closed in honor of Thanksgiving holiday. And Friday, November 26th, the office will be closed in honor of Thanksgiving holiday. That is the extent of the announcements.
All right. Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Alderman from the 26th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. First of all, thank you all for the birthday wishes. I needed them. Thank you so much. And I just want to announce two things going on today and tomorrow in the 26th ward. First of all, shout out to Demetrius Johnson at the Eddie Mae Binion Demetrius Johnson Center, 724 North Union. He's having his annual Thanksgiving turkey basket giveaway tonight. They pack the baskets and tomorrow they distribute the baskets. But I just have to mention that this is his 31st year doing this. And he started off with 25 turkeys and now he gives away over 2,000 turkeys along with food. So he blesses people in St. Louis City, County, all the way down to Haytown, Missouri. So thank you, Demetrius, for your continued dedication with that. You know, we support you 100%. And I'll see you tonight. And also People's Community Health Center, Betty Jean Kirk People's Community Health Center on Delmore, 5701 Delmore, today from 5 to 7 and tomorrow from 9 to 1. Again, Thanksgiving basket giveaways with a turkey and food. And they also have flu shots and COVID-19 testing and vaccination. So a lot of good things going on in the 26th ward. There's more, but just want to make sure that anybody that has a need for Thanksgiving, we have some options for you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Alderman from the 12th.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. I would just like to remind everyone that the best day to have a preparedness plan is yesterday, but the next best day is today or tomorrow. This past week, about 200 miles south of St. Louis in Williamsville near Poplar Bluff, there was an earthquake, magnitude 4.0. I hope that none of us in this city are alive to see when the new Madrid goes, but in the event that it does, we need to have preparedness kits ready for all sorts of situations, be they earthquakes, tornadoes, severe thunderstorms, or other natural disasters. So I always recommend ready.gov, which is the Federal Emergency Management Agency website, excuse me there. We also have an excellent City Emergency Management Agency, CEMA. Both have preparedness kit guides. And for earthquakes, it's very simple. It is drop, cover, and hold on. So thank you, Mr. President, for my little earthquake PSA there. And thank you, members of the board.
Well, thank you, Alderman. Alderman from the 9th.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. I just wanted to mention, tying into Resolution 135, which we passed out today. Tomorrow, there's a celebration for the retirement of Mike Howard, who has spent 42 years as the director of the 5-Star Senior Center. Although the 5-Star Senior Center is located in the 9th, they have serviced our entire city through Meals to Wheels, utility assistance for seniors, home repair assistance for seniors. So there's a lot of services that the 5-Star Senior Center has provided. So tomorrow from 6 to 9, there will be a retirement party for Mike Howard. If you know him or have worked with him, you are welcome to stop by and congratulate him of 42 years. The 5-Star Senior Center is located at 2832 Arsenal Street, right at Arsenal and Gravois. And 6 p.m. cocktails, and then at 7 p.m. there will be a short presentation where I will be handing off Resolution 135 honoring Mike Howard. So please stop by and show your congratulations for his 42 years of service to our seniors. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Alderwoman from 27th.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, let me say Happy Men's Day. Today is Men's Day for November. And I know you all thought the women forgot you, but we did not forget you guys. And second, I just want to thank all the residents within the 27th ward. I'm following the lead of my senior alderperson, Marlene Davis. and Alderwoman Sharon Tice to thank our residents for being patient with us in regards to this whole mapping situation and these meetings. So we applaud you for your diligence, and we ask you to stay committed to keep working with us on this issue. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Alderwoman from the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. First, just wanted to give a big, huge public thank you to our Congresswoman Cori Bush for the passage of the Build Back Better Act this morning. That is going to be transformative for our city and for the country. And it's really nice in Missouri to have some of our federal representation doing really great work in DC. Also want to announce SLPS is doing another vaccination clinic for children and for adults. They've got boosters available and Moderna and Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson vaccines for 18 and above. But for the children, especially at Vashon High School on Saturday from 9 to 1. And I know that they said they had some challenges with outdoor waiting last time, and they're hoping to solve that this time and get kids inside while they're waiting to get their vaccines, and have some more staff there to take care of that as well. And also, Dr. Mahdi asked us to circulate that the health department is hosting a COVID-19 vaccine, the Truth About Pediatric Vaccines town hall event on Monday, November 22nd, and that's at 6 p.m. It's online. I believe you'll be able to just watch on Facebook, but there is an Eventbrite link if you want to sign up and you have questions to submit for that. So thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Alderwoman from the 19th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. First, I wanted to give a thank you to all of the residents of my southern part of my ward. So let me just give kudos to Gate District West. They gave a development report on the projects that they are overseeing there. They are actually the ones who chose their own developers. They chose their own designs. They're monitoring it, everything. And very soon, a part of our community benefit agreement with the 353 development plan, they will start the home repair program from funds that were set aside from the sale of the properties in these various developments. So they are outstanding. The Tiffany neighborhood is standing tall, making decisions about whether or not they're going to have a quick trip. It is not anybody else's decision but theirs. And so I respect them. I appreciate them. They are all well versed and prepared. My last congratulations will be to a film premiere for Belle Darius, and most of you all know her. She's the violinist that plays at a lot of different places. And she's also a promoter here in the city of St. Louis. But her movie that she starred in last night premiered at the Galleria called Mic Check. But it tells an interesting story, and it also puts some perspective to all those who have those dreams about becoming rappers or whatever, how to respect each other. And I said that was my last, but then I also want to just remind everybody that we do have a new facility that has opened at 3333 Washington Avenue called Sophie's. It's another Kransberg development. There's an event space there. There's a gallery there, art gallery there, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And it would give you a lot of pleasure just to walk through it. So thank you very much, Mr. President and members of the board.
All right, thank you. Alderman from the 10th, you recognize on the motion to excuse.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I move that we excuse the alderpersons from the 15th, 21st, and 25th ward for necessary actions.
All right, thanks. Entertain a second on that motion.
Second.
Seconded by the Alderman from the 5th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
No.
No.
Still no no's. Motion carried. Alderman from the 10th, you are now recognized happily on the motion to adjourn.
And thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I move that we adjourn to Tuesday, November 23rd, 2021 at 10:01 a.m.
Been moved by the Alderman from the 10th. Entertain a second on that motion.
Second.
Seconded by the Alderman from the 6th and Alderman from the 1st. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
No,
Didn't hear you. One more time. Oppose?
no.
We stand adjourned. You all have a good weekend. Thanks.